I used to model. I went with them to this nightclub. So I joined the group and I was looking around me. I saw all those people around me and I felt not belonging and not part of that. I said it actually with a loud voice in the middle on the dance floor, just saying the shahada. A colleague of me looking at me and saying, "What are you doing here? Leave, go away." I decided to get books. One book was Science in Islam, how sweet and salt water would be divided in the seas and wouldn't mix, and how the embryo in the womb of a woman would look in the beginning like just a cloth of blood. How could that be possible? The biggest miracle of all is how can a book be kept original from that time to today? This is not the same in Christianity. We don't have any other original book. And I cry to God and ask him to please help me to say those words. I still, till today, remember that pain. It's like somebody by force trying to stretch your skin, like cutting it in two pieces. How our Prophet ﷺ got his belief, Imam, in his heart. I was sure that this is what happened to me in that night in Ramadan.
Assalamualaikum, Sister Elisabeth JACKSTADT. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. As eternal passenger, we're very happy to have you with us. I'd like to start with, who is Elisabeth JACKSTADT? Can you tell us briefly about your life?
My name is Elisabeth JACKSTADT. I'm from Germany. I converted 19 years ago, which is exactly half of my life now. I'm 38 years old. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I'm living in Egypt for about 20 years almost. My mother remarried when I was about 8 years old, and this person got actually sick. There was a lot of alcohol involved. I wasn't in a safe environment. When things got really bad and more violence was involved, because I would speak up my truth and even try to defend my siblings, the government actually interfered and took me out of the family. And I was living in a place where I was the only one who still had parents. It was an orphanage in Germany. I used to model. I got some money for modeling, for catalogs, for runway shows, and I knew that getting veiled is also closing that option. But I also know how people would look at you if you have some kilos more and you're not good enough for that show and for that photo. So to protect yourself from such judgment, alhamdulillah, Islam is very protective towards women.
Have you ever experienced something that led you to Islam?
I decided to get books. One book was Science in Islam, scientists from Harvard and Oxford and non-Muslim scientists speaking about things they found in the Quran and they proved it by science. I don't know why I chose the science book first. I'm a person that needs proof. I don't follow just a feeling and it feels good, so I do it. No, I need proof for what I'm doing. So science was the first book I went for that have nothing to do with Islam, and they found things in the books. They found how the mountains are stuck in the earth and you would see just the top of it, and how sweet and salt water would be divided in the seas and wouldn't mix, and how an ant is actually having bones out of kind of glass fibers, and how the embryo in the belly of in the womb of a woman would look in the beginning like just a cloth of blood, and something that no one would know at that time, especially not somebody who's not educated, who's a shepherd in the desert. Something that would make me question, how could that be possible? How could that be written in a book? And then the biggest miracle of all is how can a book be kept original from that time to today? This is not the same in Christianity. We don't have any other original book that is kept from God with his original word, and it obviously fascinated me.
Sister, I heard a strange thing about you. Is it true that you took your shahada on the dance floor? And what made you decide to do this?
So after I was reading the science book, and I had to admit that this is at least inspired by a higher power, I said it's time to read the Quran. And I remember how I kept washing about 20-25 minutes before I touched the Quran. I had so much respect for this book, and I started reading Al-Fatiha, our first surah in the Quran, and I remember how I was reading it and 100% sure that this is God talking to me. I actually only finished till half Surah Al-Baqarah before I wanted to take my shahada and I wanted to be a Muslim. And people were warning warning me and saying, wait for the parts where the woman is allowed to be hidden and beaten and where the ugly parts are coming. I was 100% sure there would be explanations and reasons. So I wrote down on a little paper the shahada. I didn't know a word of Arabic by then, and I had no idea why I thought that I had to be able to memorize those words. I know now the shahada can be said, repeated after someone. It could be said in any language. It's an intention in your heart. It's a decision in your heart. It's something between you and God. However, I thought that I had to have those words memorized and say them memorized from my heart. I was struggling to say those words, and it took about 2 weeks. And I remember that evening where my colleagues convinced me of leaving the room. I was always going after work studying, and I was the boring girl who never goes out, and they were a bit worried about my mental health, that I'm never leaving the room. And I just had so much questions. I wanted to read the books and know more about this religion, and they convinced me to go out and took me with them to a nightclub that is like the city next to ours, and it was actually one of the top nightclubs ranked in the world. I don't know. And they took me to a hip-hop night, and they just were able to convince me. So I joined the group, and I was in that nightclub. I said it actually with a loud voice in the middle on the dance floor, and one of my colleagues noticed me saying the shahada and was saying, "What are you doing here? You cannot say such words on a dance floor. Leave. Go away." He didn't mean to say those words somewhere else. He meant to not say those words. So I took my consequences and I just left the place. And yes, you're right. I should remove myself from this place, and I didn't crave going back to it. And feeling that this is the fulfillment of dreams. This is the ultimate freedom. This is the ultimate goal. This is what I worked for the whole week.
How did you feel when you took Shahada?
So when I said my shahada, I was imagining a firework to come from the sky, or someone saying, "Finally, you are with us." Nothing of that happened. It wasn't in a movie. It was just me alone on this dance floor and on my own, and I realized how alone I am, and how I'm lost, and how I'm not belonging to anyone, and how I don't have anyone, and how I don't have any support system, and how I'm just alone in this. So for me it was quite sad. No one came and hugged me. Nobody came and say, "Welcome to Islam." Nobody was saying, "You're not alone, sister, we're many." All of this happened much later. Actually, I had a very magical moment.
How was your life in regards to faith? Did you have any faith before?
My family, despite being very broken and shattered, was quite conservative comparing to other German families. We were going regular to church. Every Sunday was time to go to church, and I was also attending the lessons that you would take before becoming a Christian. It's like a youth program. I would attend it and get studies about Christianity. I just remember that when I was 14, 15, I started to question some things that I learned there. They didn't quite make sense to me. I felt confused. I felt also not belonging. Free is one is free, Son of God, but Son died on the cross. All of that wasn't quite convincing to me. I feel I was searching for my own spiritual answers, didn't quite find them. But when it came actually to me finding Islam, I also went back to the Bible and said I need to start to find in my own sources for answers first. So after reading Quran, I went back to the Bible to read it also, and just made sure that I'm on track and that I find the truth for myself, and eventually ended up in Islam.
Sister, what was the thing that made you question your beliefs? Was it an event or a thought? And when was it?
So it happened to be that I went for an assignment 6 months to Egypt. I was supposed to work with children in a hotel. And one afternoon, I took a group of tourists to a bazaar. It was Friday, and that person happened to close the door in front of our faces and said he has to go to the Friday prayer. I remember having this group of people with me that were supposed to travel the next day back to Germany, and they were about to spend lots of money on souvenirs. And I told the owner of the bazaar, "Why would you prefer going to pray than making business?" So we were talking a little bit like friends. I was a regular guest there. And then he was telling me, in Islam, it's a must to attend the Friday prayer. Otherwise, the money would be used against me. It would not be halal money. I remember, and that evening, I was thinking by myself that I'm impressed by him having evidence for what he's doing, for his actions. Otherwise, he would obviously prefer money. Because when it comes to my own personal belief by then, yeah, of course, family and friends is more important than money. Health is more important than money. But quite after that, this is an important role. It's an important thing in our lives, and it controls many of our decisions. So I had nothing like him to say it worth more than doing the business in that moment.
Sister, you know, it's Ramadan right now. How did you feel in your first Ramadan?
So you want crying? So I was in Cairo. It was Ramadan. I was just 2 weeks Muslim. I was trying to go in the night to the mosque, praying the Taraweeh prayer. And I remember how I was struggling with the paper where my prayers are written on. So I was the whole time since Ramadan having this paper with me. On both sides it's written what I should do, in which position I should say which words. That night in the Taraweeh prayer, they decided to switch off the light for more atmospheric prayer. And I remember how I was not able to continue my prayer. And in the break of between the rakas, I was saying, I cannot pray without light. I need to see my paper. And then they would say, you're not allowed to hold a paper while you're praying. You're allowed to hold the Quran in the Taraweeh prayer, but you cannot hold a paper, and you cannot sit down in your tahajjud, or you cannot hold a paper while praying. I didn't know it's a special night. 27 days of Ramadan, half of my paper. How long would it take me to recite all of it? The light goes off and I cannot pray, and I'm going down and I'm putting my hands on the floor and my head on the floor, and I cry to God and ask him to please help me to say those words without the paper in my hand, without needing light, and make it easy for me. I felt struggling and it took me so much effort. I stood up and I was saying all the words by myself. Light is off, I can't use my paper, and I was just able to say the words. And I knew that I said them right. I knew that I didn't miss a word. I knew that I said it perfect. And a physical pain happened in my heart that I couldn't stand. I still, till today, remember that pain. It's like somebody by force trying to stretch your skin and trying to open your heart, like cutting it into pieces. That's how physical pain felt for me. I don't understand what happened. It was like when you have a lung infection, or when you can't breathe properly. I heard from our seerah how our Prophet ﷺ got his belief, how he got his imam in his heart. He was a little child. He was out with the sheep, and he was like behind some trees, and the angel Jibril came to him and put physically the iman into his heart. And when I heard that story, I was sure that this is what happened to me in that night in Ramadan. It's, you can't prove it. No scientist can prove it for me. But I'm 1% sure that this happened to me. Because it was out of the blue.
How did your family and the people around you react to your conversion to Islam?
I didn't tell my family direct that I converted. I was also not that connected to them at that part of my life. I was obviously in Egypt. I was having the 6-month assignment. They were back in Germany. I didn't call anyone. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to do this on my own. I didn't want to be influenced by anyone. So I had a chance to be on my own. And as much as there was loneliness and sadness and being lost, looking back, I feel that I had the purest connection with God at that time. As if, like, I never felt as supported as by then, because God just felt how I'm so alone. None of them understood what's happening. They reacted as if I was telling them I'm going to South America and dancing around a fire and praying to the moon, something that is totally crazy and not understandable. And I get it, with all those misconceptions we have about Islam and all the bad examples around us. I totally understand if somebody is not happy for you or positive for you and actually gets worried. Very calm, and she was saying most of the things are in common between us. I'm happy for you to believe in God. That's all what I wanted for you to do. And in times you were not believing in God, I think now you're closer than before, so I have to be happy for you.
What changed in your life after accepting Islam?
So after I converted to Islam, I realized that even if I lose my family, if I lose my siblings, if I'm misunderstood by my husband, worst case scenario, I would even get divorced, there's something that I would never lose. And that is that I will get treated fair with all my intentions, with all my good deeds, with all my servings I did to others, with every smile I gave to someone. I will be judged fairly, and I'm not needing to be treated right in this life.
Sister, you have seen the people in the nightclub because you were once part of that lifestyle. Do you think they are really happy?
Subhanallah, I'm now 38 years old. When I look back to my friends in Germany, comparing my life with their life, I feel, alhamdulillah, very blessed. If you feel that I missed out on the fun you had, maybe I also missed out on the problems you had. Maybe I also missed out on all the struggles you had. Maybe I missed out on the mental suffering. And I know that in Europe, number one sickness now is mental sicknesses. People are not living their purpose and not living how they are created. And that shows. The clinics are full, the psychologists are overbooked. Everyone feels drained. Missing of purpose is something that really makes a soul sick. Me looking at them now, I'm saying, alhamdulillah, I got protected from all the mistakes those people had to make because they were not protected.
In your opinion, what's the biggest and most obvious difference between Christianity and Islam?
So I think the biggest difference between Christianity and Islam is that I feel that I got so much more proof for what I'm doing, and I got answers for every situation in my life. And I felt that when I was reading the Bible, I got more of historical stories. Yes, you can take them as an example. However, I was finding a lot of, yeah, first of all, misunderstandings, also different versions, like the family tree of some people were different. I remember also the sheep that had only one stomach. This is obviously a mistake. So we don't have mistakes in the Quran, and we don't have, yeah, different versions of things, and a very clear guideline of how a society should be managed, of how people should live, what is the purpose in life, what is the hereafter. It's described in details, what to expect when we're dead. I didn't find that, and I think it's the most important questions in life.
What impressed you the most about our Prophet, peace be upon him?
What I love the most about our Prophet ﷺ is how he was treating children, how he would make a prayer shorter if a baby was crying, how we know from our hadith that his grandkid would jump over him while he's praying, and he would give him or the child the chance to play, and when the need of that child is fulfilled, he would finish his prayer. This is something we have in children psychology today, the needs of children and the comfort of children. And it's actually called need-based psychology. And this was done in an age where people were burying their own child because they were afraid of shame. They were burying girls because they were scared of how their child would bring problems to the family. In those age, our Prophet ﷺ already showed us how to be merciful with children.
If our Prophet, peace be upon him, entered the door right now, what would you like to say to him?
I think if our Prophet ﷺ would enter the door, I wouldn't say anything. I think I would ask him something. I would ask, what did you mean by this and that? And I would ask for advice. I would ask for guidance. But maybe if I would have a chance to tell him something, I would tell him, you were worried about the Ummah not to get the religion, but actually this is the fastest growing religion today in the world. And guess what? Everybody says that women don't have rights in this religion. The most people that convert to Islam are female. So alhamdulillah.
Would you like to talk to him about your pains that you try to endure, just like our Prophet, peace be upon him, did?
When I hear about the stories of our Prophet ﷺ, and actually when I was in Medina and visiting his grave, I had a moment in the Rauda where I was totally alone. And this is usually a place that is very crowded, but I had a moment of peace standing in front of his grave, and I felt a kind of connection because I know he was many, many times attacked for spreading Islam, for explaining the religion to the people. I was invited from God to understand that for myself.
Sister, there are so many addicts in this world, and some of them are dying because of addiction. What do you wish for those who are in this kind of life and are still alive?
So addiction can have many, many different reasons. However, addiction is always that you're feeling a lack inside of you, you have missings, you're missing out on something, and you're trying to fill those gaps with substance. Either you want to not feel yourself, you don't want to be connected to yourself, you need to run away from the truth, or you are just, starting a bad habit and you don't know how to get back to a disciplined life. It's tragic and sad to see that around you. However, you also know that, subhanAllah, in Islam, we are from the very young age confronted with discipline. When I look at my children, how they're disciplined to do 5 prayers, it's almost impossible for a child to do that. When he got a sick child or when he got sick, he will not find cure, not with his money. Health is still something that is above all of that. So to treat your health wisely and as an amana is one of the duties we have in our religion.
If you had the chance to speak to all non-Muslims in the world, what would you say to them?
Don't be afraid of the consequences of what you're going to learn and what you're going to read. Once you have God by your side, you don't have to be afraid of anything. It's as if you have the biggest connection in your country on your side, the biggest businessman, the president, the biggest company owner. He will help you with all your paperwork. He will get you the house you want. He will get you the wife you want to marry. He will get you the best school for your children, anything you can imagine. There's one person who can make that all happen. So we all don't know how long we are here. We don't know how long we will live. We don't know if we will pass the road tomorrow and we die by a car accident. We never know how long we live. Life is temporary for all of us.
Sister Elizabeth, thank you so much for your attendance. It was such a pleasure to meet you. Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you for everyone who's involved in this production for the Internal Passenger, and thank you for everyone who's even volunteering. May Allah reward you for your good intentions and for your efforts and give you highest paradise, inshallah.